Greetings, everybody. I'm glad you could make it for today's episode of Star Wars Nerds and Geeks. So, today's episode was going to be another Star Wars pros and cons episode where I talked about Solo, a Star Wars story. But that's going to have to be postponed. See, as I was scrolling through my memes the other day, I saw this meme. And while this is a funny meme, it got me thinking about Darth Jar Jar. I mean, is Jar Jar Binks really a Sith Lord? Because everyone talks about it, and there's so many videos out there that are proving that he is a Sith Lord. But is it really true? So I ended up researching why Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord and why he is not. So I'm going to first talk about why he could be a Sith Lord. See, in episode 1, he is supposed to be a klutz. He's supposed to be somebody who doesn't know what he's doing, who's just running around and falling all over the place. And yet, somehow, he becomes a Gungan general. Somehow, he leads the army, the Gungan Grand Army, onto a battle against the Separatists, against the Trade Federation. Somehow, he is able to attack tanks. He is able to destroy battle droids, all without seemingly being a klutz. And then we move on to episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and he again he's now less of a klutz and more of a politician. How did just a nobody become a politician, that a representative of Naboo? How did somebody who was nothing rise up to something like that? And then one of the first things we see him do as a representative is give Chancellor Palpatine all these incredible emergency powers, which ends up allowing him to execute Order 66, the dream, by the way, of all Sith Lords. And then, in the TV show Star Wars The Clone Wars, Jar Jar Binks is also being seen doing a lot of, again, just crazy stuff. He acts like a klutz the entire time, yet somehow just accidentally stumbles onto a switch that destroys a bunch of battle droids. Like, oops, how did that happen? So there's this one episode that I am recalling right now that is called, what is it called? I'm going to put it on the screen right now. But it is about how Jar Jar Binks put on a Jedi robe and pretended to be a Jedi and to attack the battle droids and save Padme from Newt Gunray. So somehow he is able to fool the droids into thinking that he's a Jedi, and then somehow is able to beat the droids by just happening to control a creature to attack all the droids and save Padme. I mean, how else could he do this if he wasn't a Sith Lord? See, the only way that any of these things could happen, supposedly, is that Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord. There's no way he could do all this stuff if he's not a Sith Lord. But the problem with that is Jar Jar Binks, if he was a Sith Lord, then that would completely undermine the rule of 2. So let me talk about both Legends and canon for a minute here. So first in Legends, because it's not necessarily true, but at the time of episode 1, it could have been true, because George Lucas was still in control, and I don't believe and I believe that it wasn't until Disney came along that they were categorized as legend. Anyways, in Legend, there is, at the time of episode 1, Darth Plagueis is the master, Darth Sidious is the apprentice, and Darth Maul is a so-called Sith assassin, which is also what Asajj Ventress was. So, therefore, Jar Jar Binks cannot be a Sith Lord at the time of episode 1. Maybe he could have been a Sith assassin, but in the Legends books where we hear about Darth Maul being a Sith assassin, he's mentioned a lot, and never, ever is Jar Jar Binks mentioned. Not until episode 1 comes along does Jar Jar Binks get mentioned. See, in episode 2, and that's all the legends I know about. There's probably a lot more, but that's about all I can think of right now. Then let's go to canon. In canon, if Darth Maul was the apprentice, then Darth Sidious would be the master. And yet, that still means that Jar Jar Binks cannot be a Sith Lord. He has to be a Sith assassin. Yet the only other Sith assassin that we know was Asajj Ventress, who was mentioned a lot, and she had a lot of story going on with her. So Jar Jar Binks couldn't be a Sith assassin. He couldn't be a Sith Lord either. And by the time episode 2 comes along, yet again, the master was Darth Sidious. The apprentice was Count Dooku. There's no room for a Sith assassin because there's already a Sith assassin of Asajj Ventress. And even you could probably count General Grievous as another Sith assassin, though technically he isn't Force sensitive and therefore can't be a Sith. So yeah, Jar Jar Binks just plain cannot be a Sith Lord simply because of the rule of 2. There's no way that he could be that. And I mean, the only reason that fans are saying that Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord is because they hate him. See, people have always hated Jar Jar Binks. One of the most hated characters. When he came out, everybody booed him. They did not like what he stood for. So, what's an easy way to diss on Jar Jar Binks, a character that you so hate? Well, why don't we make him evil? Who's evil? Sith Lords are evil. That brings up a point. Are Sith Lords evil and are Jedi good? I'm gonna make a video about that sometime later. Anyways, back to the thought. They are probably thinking, well, if Sith Lords are supposedly evil, and we hate Jar Jar Binks, and the best way to express our hate for him is to make him evil, why don't we say he's a Sith Lord? And then once they got that, they found all this different proof for it. See, if you put your mind to it, you can prove anything that you want. If you could prove that a piece of paper is a sentient being, if you so believed and you set your passion towards proving that, you could make people believe you. That is what people are doing with Jar Jar Binks. They're taking the smallest bit of stuff and they're running a mile with it. It's just not true, though. Jar Jar Binks cannot be a Sith Lord. He could be possibly Force sensitive. Who knows? That might explain his intense luck. But as far as I know, and as far as I know in the canon and the legends, Jar Jar Binks is simply a lucky klutz, not a Sith Lord. Well, that's just about all the proof I have been able to conjure up for this testimony. My gosh, this break is making me use some fancy words. Blame it on the break. Anyways, I know that wasn't a lot of proof, but I feel like that's all you really need. I mean, all you really need to prove it is to prove that Jar Jar Binks is not a Sith Lord is you need to know the what is it? You need to know the rule of two. And then of course, you need to ask yourself, have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? And if you know those two things, then you should be able to prove to any of those non-believer Jar Jar haters out there that Jar Jar Binks is not a Sith Lord. I mean, I gotta admit, it's a really fun theory, and you can poke a lot of fun with it, and you can have a lot of fun. You can make a lot of jokes about it, but in the end, we all know that it can't be true. That's about all I can ramble on for. As always, this is Star Wars Nerds and Geeks, signing off. See you next time.